Alright, so I just wanted to give you a closer look at the dye going on to the gram stain. So when I mentioned in the last video to flood the slide, let's just pretend that this is our wet mount. So we've got the bacteria on there, it's dried, we've ran it through the Bunsen burner twice, so it's ready for the first stain, which is our crystal violet. So what you're going to do is you're going to cover the entire slide, and so you want to get the dye on there as quickly as possible, covering the entire slide like so, and then you're going to wait your 1 minute. So this is what flooding the slide means, completely covering the slide, and then you start your 1 minute as soon as it's covered. So we've already started our minute. And then if it starts to dry out, if you've got it flooded completely, it normally won't, but if it starts to dry out, you can monitor this by just adding drops when necessary. Now we don't need to flood it to where we get the actual dye into the staining tray. We want to just make sure that the entire slide stays full of the stain. So once we rinse, we can just take our slide here and we want to rinse it off. Now as we're rinsing, I want you to tilt the slide down like this to get a good rinse, and then I also want you to rinse the back part. Now remember, you do not want to get the front and the back mixed up. The front is where the stain actually is, the back is where the stain is not. So we've got it rinsed thoroughly as so. Now we're going to set the front of the slide back down so the stain is still right here and not under here. Now the next one that we're going to do is the iodine. You're going to do it the same way. You're going to flood the slide. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to put the iodine onto the slide until it's full. Now start your minute. Now then you can monitor this as well by just adding drops when necessary. Just make sure that your iodine is not clumpy. You want it to be smooth. Sometimes the iodine doesn't mix properly, so always remember to shake your iodine before you get started and make sure that it is smooth and not clumpy. Alright, once the iodine has sat on there, the most important part is the rinsing with the ethyl alcohol. So what you're going to do is you're going to tilt your slide again, so you're going to allow the iodine to come off, and then you're going to rinse with the ethyl alcohol. You're going to start at the end here, and you're just going to 1, 2, 3 for 3 seconds. Now if you needed to get more alcohol to do it, so you do it for 3 full seconds, that's fine. And then you immediately rinse with water. I want you to rinse the front and the back. So you are rinsing the iodine off with the ethyl alcohol. Alright, and then the last step is the safranin, and again flood the slide. So go ahead, put all of the dye onto the slide here, start your minute now, and then just go ahead and monitor. Those bubbles are fine. Just go ahead and keep adding to it. Not so much that the dye drips off of the slide, but enough to keep the slide flooded. Okay, that's going to go for 1 minute. And once you're done with that, you can rinse your safranin off. So again, we rinse the safranin off. We want to make sure we get a thorough rinse. So you're going to rinse the front off and the back. Just do not mix up the front and the back of the slide. So now we have the front of the slide. Remember, this is where our stain is. Okay, and then you're going to dry your slide with the bibulous paper. I'm going to dry the top of it, top of the slide, where your stain is, with bibulous paper, just by rubbing like this to make sure that it is dry. You can dry the bottom with bibulous paper or with a paper towel. That doesn't matter, but we must dry the top of the slide with the bibulous paper like so, just wiping from side to side. Now we have our completely dry slide with our stain on top here, and when you set it into the microscope, the stain needs to remain on top.